good, good whatever you are, good day to everybody. Okay. Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the beauty of the virtual world. We can be wherever we want to be. I'm so grateful, I'm so happy, and I'm so excited to share with you the story of this woman here today. My name is Valerie Bimo, and I live in the US, but I'm originally from Cameroon. Today is about really looking at authentic leadership, how women across the world, different culture, can actually be authentic leaders, but also thrive and succeed. Without saying that it's easy, but this is our journey. To start for our discussion, what I want to do, instead of me introducing each of the panelists, because all of you can see their bios, what I want to do is making it differently. I'll ask first each of the ladies to give me, if you were in a movie, what character and how can they describe what character they will be. And I'll start with Barbara. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is your character, who you are, Barbara?
Great question, Dr. Bimo. I think I'd be an action figure. Maybe I don't know all the action figures, but I might be one of those who goes in and gets it done and figures it out. So, and tries to overcome all obstacles. But I'd be a real nice one.
I like it. Be nice, but be tough at the same time. Okay, thank you, Barbara. I'll move to Mona.
Thank you, Dr. Bimo. So if I were in a movie, this movie would be about nature, and I'd be a river. And a river that is unstoppable, but knows when to stop and where to stop and when to merge with the sea. Wow. Thank you.
That is beautiful. Mairo, Dr. Mandara?
If I were in a movie, I would be a vibrant optimist. I'll be like a bumblebee, pollinating ideas from place to place and beautifully moving ideas from one niche to the other to unleash the potential. So I'll be a bumblebee.
Oof. Wow, we're getting a really fun. Maggie, what about you?
Oh, thank you. I've had a bit of time to think. So I've taken a liking for this show called The Equalizer, and Queen Latifah plays in it. And every Monday, I love to see what she's going to go try and solve. I love solving problems. So that would be me, Queen Latifah.
Wow, thank you. I think for me, I'll be a tree, because the tree connects the earth and the sky. The tree covered, the tree nourished, the tree feeds us, the tree breathes for us, our oxygen, and the tree is so peaceful and still, despite whatever. Then this will be me. Now, I think the next question I want to ask all of you is like, what did you study and what do you do now? Because we know school is important, and all of us, we are here really accomplished because we went to school to do something. But we end up doing so many other things, and it's important to see that part. I'll start with you, Mairo. What did you study and what are you doing now?
So in the university, I'm a doctor by training, and I did my postgraduate in obstetrics and gynecology. So I'm primarily a surgeon. So this is what I did, and I still teach obstetrics and gynecology at the University of Maiduguri as a part-time thing. But where I spend probably 80% of my time are in two areas, two buckets of work. One as special advisor and coordinator for sustainable development, partnerships and humanitarian support to the governor of Borno State, supporting him in thinking through and developing strategies on how to rebuild the insurgency-ravaged area of the Lake Chad region, Borno State, where Boko Haram had created a lot of you might have remembered the Chibok girls. So that's where I am, to rebuild that state to its thousands of years of glory, because it's one of the oldest empires on the continent of Africa. So that's where I spend probably about 60% of my time. The other 20 to 30, I spend ensuring girls go to school across Africa. So I champion a program called Keeping Girls in School Africa, where we're looking at, and that's coming from my obstetrics and gynecology experiences, where we're working hard to ensure every girl on the continent at least finishes secondary school. Because the data has shown, and that came early on as in my work as an obstetrician, where we saw very severe health illnesses like vesicovaginal fistula, maternal mortality, low contraceptive rate, higher child mortality, are all associated mainly with women with no education. And the researchers have shown that completion of secondary school is the first leap of hope that women have. And I suppose that's why all of us on this platform are who we are. So our work is focused on advocating and facilitating ways of ensuring every girl on the continent at least has an opportunity to finish secondary school. And we're putting that in practice in the background picture that you have of me, getting girls from internally displaced communities and putting them back to school. And we recently showed that when you give opportunity, girls can be who they need to be. They will just be the best. Because some of those girls we took in the IDP camps just last month, actually, this month, early this month, 15th of this month, graduated in Ivy League University in Notre Dame. 4 of them graduated. Of the 4, all 4 have offers in postgraduate in Harvard, in Boston, and in Berkeley to do PhD. And these are girls taken from IDP camps. So this is the possibility of education for girls.
Wow, beautiful, Mairo. And you just really share with us that everything is possible, even if they are displaced, taken by rebel, they still have hope as long as we give them the opportunity. Yep. Beautiful. Mona, can I go with you? This is another Dr. Anand.
Thank you so much. So I studied architecture at a time when architecture was completely, I would say, largely male dominated. Women just worked as draftsmen, serving the ideas that men had. And in my graduation as an architect, I learned the power of out-of-box thinking and the power of teamwork, because architects are supposed to work with teams from different disciplines. So that's what my college education gave me. Then I studied planning, development planning to be precise. There I unraveled my passion for community work, for social work. And that's where I picked up my interest to work with people who have been affected by disasters, mainly people who have lost homes, houses, livelihoods because of various kinds of disasters. And then I started working for people who are the most vulnerable, especially in India, parts of South Asia, if I could look at other projects that I've been involved in. And that took me to the state of Bihar, where I got hammer and tongs into the business of saving lives as part of the emergency management programs of the government. And now I'm taking forward my passion at an international coalition, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. And I serve as the Director for Research and Knowledge Management. And my big learning in this journey has been that knowledge is really the key to making change. So if we can enable access to knowledge that people can understand, use, and take forward in their own spaces, that's when we have, the entire movement, the sea of humanity moving forward towards positive change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. And actually, you didn't say it, but as you go, 2 years ago, you got your PhD. Only 2 years ago. But we'll come back to that. Yes. I'll move to Maggie.
All right. Oh, hopefully you can hear me well.
Yes.
All right. So is there an echo? Can you go to Barbara and come back to me?
Valerie, you were muted. Do you want me to jump in? Okay, you're still muted. Again,
yes,
my name is.
Yeah, please go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, so I got my degree in psychology, and I never went to graduate school. I thought about it, and for a variety of reasons didn't do it, and we might end up discussing some of those supportive issues. And I will say that I had a variety of jobs, from working on reservations in Wyoming to working at the University of Washington as a speechwriter and in communications and in resource mobilization. But I really didn't come into my stride until I was in my mid-30s, I would say. And I really came into my own professionally and had to make choices around that as well. And that took me from working in higher education at various colleges and universities, Columbia University, where I worked with the economist Jeff Sachs. It took me to, I worked at NYU in an engineering school, science and engineering school. It took me to Kenya, working with the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. And with Dr. Bimo, it also took me to Nigeria, working with the Minister of Agriculture for Nigeria. But in 2014, and I may be the oldest person here, in 2014, I thought I was going to retire. And I took a really long hike across the mountains of Colorado and came out. And it was actually during the Ebola outbreak, and I'd finished this hike. And I don't know, Valerie, if you remember, but I kind of emailed, is there something I can do? I'm free, I'm helpful. And it didn't necessarily work out, but I got this telephone call from the executive director of the World Food Program. And she said, and I had met her through working with Dr. Adeshina in Nigeria. And she said, Barbara, you're the only person who can helicopter in, do the job, and then leave. And so I was brought in as an assistant executive director, because the person in charge of fundraising, partnerships, advocacy, board duties had cancer and needed a 10-month break to heal. So I ended up doing that, went back into retirement. Dr. Bimo also called me and said, Barbara, I think you could help one of those organizations or two. Maybe you should do some consulting work again. So I ended up going back into consulting, did a bit of that for different clients. Then again, went into retirement, and I didn't like what was happening in government. So I ran for office, and in a small town of Durango, it's got about 19,000 people. And this is rural America. And I had only lived in town for 3 years and 3 weeks when I announced that I was going to run. And nobody actually thought I was crazy. And I got elected. And I actually am probably the city councilor with the least time living in town before I was elected. And now I'm the mayor.
Yes, what a journey. And I don't think you are ready to retire yet. I'll come and fish you out of the retirement again soon if you do. Maggie, can you go? And I'll put my icon mic.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully you're hearing me well this time. I did not study IT, and it's showing today. I'm having all sorts of technology problems, but I'm going to persevere. I studied business management and organization. And when I was in school, entrepreneurship was not something that was discussed. It was probably not an option. It was just not around me. I thought I would put those skills to helping other businesses and just helping to organize. I always wanted to be in the private sector. So did a bit of consulting, putting those skills to use. And when I decided to move back from the US to Senegal, I wanted to continue working in consulting, but what I was hearing from the actors was not where I wanted to go. And that's when I said, well, instead of waiting for somebody else to create what I want, maybe I'm gonna have to create it. So I started a consulting firm, and my appetite for entrepreneurship just kept growing, and started a coffee shop and several other businesses in Senegal. And now have set up a venture builder, which aims to build several businesses at a time. That's how you continue with the appetite. So yeah, never ever did I see myself as an entrepreneur or someone who would see an issue and just jump with others to try and solve it. So that's where I am today.
Thank you, Maji. As we see, we have for me, actually, just to come to my story, but really short, I trained as a medical doctor with public health and epidemiology, but actually I evolved to start doing a lot of work in hospital HIV when the work was really no treatment. And then I evolved to do a little bit more humanitarian, sanitation, and now I'm working in the US with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, leading all the emergency program. But in the side one, I started doing so many other things, including working with Maji at the entrepreneur, supporting a little bit Mairo, but also looking at the leadership support, especially with the young girls, but also looking at the yoga and etc. I think, and it's still long list of things I want to accomplish in my life. Then thank you, everybody. I think let us take a little bit what we call a sankofa. You have to look back to know where you're going. And I want to come back to like, where is that all start? We all coming from different country, different culture. I would like to understand, because one thing I learned as I do life coaching with people, it all started when you are young. Then I want to ask you, ladies, can you give us a picture of you between the age and 8 to 12? How does that look? Who are you? What is it? And where is your inspiration? What was your dream? Just share with us, or what is your dream, or what was the hurdle, or the do not or the don't that you heard around you. How was your environment? Because it's important for all of us to understand where you come from, because we heard so much accomplished women, but it will be important to understand it. Maybe Mairo, can I start with you again? You are muted, Mairo.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Valerie, and thank you, my other sisters, for sharing your life stories. I am from northern Nigeria, and I am a Muslim, and I'm a practicing Muslim. So growing up, I grew up in the Jos Plateau. I attended a very basic, normal local government authority schools. But as an 8-year-old, I did finish school pretty early. But as an 8-year-old, I remember, what I remember vividly is my classroom with my classmates, and being a very tiny girl at that time, and I was topping the class. So that was a big issue with boys. And I remember once, because our home to the school was quite a long distance, and we used to walk home to school. I remember once after our report card were given, the boys ganged up on the way home to beat me up. And I remember I was walking with a friend of mine, and I still remember the boy actually, and we're friends. He was not too big either. So they were a gang of them, and they tried to beat me up. And I gathered my momentum, and I took the smallest of them, and I pinned him to the ground. And as soon as I did that, I ran away. So since then, that was my only fight in childhood, actually. And then since then, everybody was scared of fighting me. So I was allowed to just get my first prize and walk home. I mean, just opening my eyes, people thought I could really beat up anybody, not knowing that I was dead scared. But at primary 5, we had a teacher His name is Malan Saleh. He spoke very, very, very good English. I think he was in customs or immigration, and he retired and came back home to teach. So he really encouraged me, just make sure you finish your school. And I had this phenomenal dad. I still haven't seen a dad like mine, who was, remember, Northern Nigeria, somebody from a Northern Nigeria, a cultural Muslim community where all girls married early. His is like, you have to go to school. You've got to be, he was a retired military officer. You've got to go to school. You have to be whatever you want to be. Whatever you want to be, I will be behind you. And he will, as soon as anybody asks, so what about you? He stands in front of you and he repeats whatever you have told him, as this is from him. And that was final. My mother, on the other hand, was a very kind woman who wouldn't kill a fly, even if the fly was on her food. She was very kind and gentle. And I remember once we went for a wedding of a relation, and the woman was very educated, and she and her friends were busy speaking English, and she just looked at me and said, you know, you've got to study. I said, yes, I will study. And that was it. And for me, that was it. And then, so running to age 12, my dad, in his bid to make sure I got the best school, he looked for the best school where we were. He took me to a private school. At that time, was very, very expensive. 90 Naira. 90 Naira is probably about maybe, because to travel, I remember that time to go for Hajj and come back and all the Esther code and everything for about 2 months, you spend 200 Naira. And he was paying 90 Naira for my school fees. And he took me to a missionary school where I was the only Muslim girl in my whole cohort of about 120 of us. So you could remember at a 10-year-old, I had to learn to be a minority. I was brought up a Muslim, but I had to go to church on Sunday. Ours was a different phenomenon. We went to church 3 times a day on Sunday. And I never studied Islamic studies. I studied Christian religious knowledge. So even at the age of 10, I was learning to balance between who I am and who I need to be to survive in that space. I needed to go to church. It was compulsory. My father signed up to all the rules. So I needed to obey all the rules. I needed to do this. And then amidst that, I have to create time to come and say 5 daily prayers in the hostel. So I'm so grateful for those things because it made me truly who I am, that I'm able to survive wherever I find myself. I'm able to remain authentic to myself despite all the things that are going around me. It makes me being able to stand aloof when things are not necessarily what I agree with. I don't need to fight it. I need to find a navigation, a way to navigate it. But it also gave me one very strong thing that I still value: the power of accepting the differences between us as human beings. And that is what makes us special and unique. That I am who I am, you're who you are, all of us are different. I think that's what makes it beautiful. Can you imagine if we all look alike, we all wear the same thing? It would be very boring, wouldn't it? So that power of accepting our differences and navigating our differences, it's truly what I enjoy about life. And that probably is why I'm restless.
The power of resilience, but be authentic self. And I think that's why we have this work today. Maybe Barbara, let me go out for you to use now.
Sure. So I grew up in a rural Midwestern town, and my parents were pretty religious in a Christian faith. And so I grew up in that environment. But I also would say that my parents were unique to me in that, and we lived in a very small town in the suburbs, and I didn't even actually realize how poor we were till I was later in life. But my mother worked, which was outside the home. I mean, she had all the raising of the kids after work, but she went to work every morning. And because we only had one car, she had to take the bus to work and then come home and then do all of the house chores as well. So from my mom, I really learned that ability to juggle. And I will say, growing up, she would go to work and then she would be at every sports activity. She and my dad would be to everything we did after school. And I think about it and I wonder, how did you do that all? Because I can get tired just, the full day of work. And my father, he was this incredibly open, artistic man who never met a stranger. And so what made our life interesting is he was forever bringing people into our home, mostly artists or musicians that needed a place to stay or needed someplace to just get a helping hand. And what was interesting is no matter how short a notice, my mom could always make more room at the table and make the meal stretch. And so it was interesting to me to have those two as role models. And also the sense that I think I never realized that we didn't have as much as many other people had, because there was so much support and acceptance of others and trying to help others along in their journey. And it's interesting. One of the people my father brought into our home went on to become a really famous painter in Michigan, and he painted like Gerald Ford at his presidential library and things. And at my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, this in the Michigan well-known painter came, and it made such a tribute to my father in that time that he lived there, that it really inspired me that that's kind of leadership, right? Is being a leader that sees what others need and provides that support. So I guess that would be my journey. I will say that by 12, in the US, they would call us latchkey kids. I would come home by myself with my sister. I had to pick her up from school. She was 9. And by that time, I would have to get in the house and take care of her and, excuse me, and get dinner started.
Thank you. Well, the power of the parents, the power of like the strong picture, the front figure that help us when we are in that age, and how we are shaped by what our environment. Margie?
Sure, thank you. And it's amazing to hear the stories. You can almost picture that 8-year-old as you were both speaking. It's great. So I'm going to continue with the trend on parents. And for me, my father, who we left Senegal when I was 4, he was able to get a job, which was very exciting, with UNICEF. And we grew up across Africa with my other siblings.
Margie, you are definitely not an IT specialist today. It looks like your IT is dropping you again. I'll go to Mona and I'll come back to you, Margie. Mona?
Thanks, Dr. Valerie. So I'll fill in while Margie comes back in. Continuing the same story of parental support, but with a slight different, slight twist in the story. So I am the third sister of a family of 4 kids, parents and 4 of us. So 3 sisters, 2 are older to me.
Margie, we'll come back to you. You are really not an IT lucky today, but we'll come back to you. Mona, continue and we'll come back to you.
Thank you. So I'm the youngest sister. And I joke with my mom even now that I'm the exam you failed. She had to produce a male child. For whatever the pressures there were, I don't know. But I do know that my parents were progressive in their approach, but they were too restrained to break the stereotype. So they just succumbed, but they made sure that I was different. So when I was 8, my younger brother was already born, and I could see the attention and appreciation he received just because he was a male child. And that gave me some trauma, I must admit here. But that also helped me push my own boundaries, supported by my parents. So that's where I picked up the passion for excelling, and excelling with excelling ethically, not taking the shortcut to make it, to make the cut. So by the time I was 12, I was super duper excelling at school. I was an orator. I was doing everything. I grabbed all the opportunities that came my way and I excelled at them. And that brought me greater validation from my parents and, others. So yeah, life gave me lemons and then I made lime juice out of that, really.
Thank you. Thank you, Mona. And I think you bring a really good point, is that the challenge brings an opportunity for all to try, but also the support that we receive. And I'll go back to you, Maji, because you were talking about how your father took you out of Senegal and start traveling internationally. You want to continue from there?
Yes, and hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. Today is a holiday in Dakar, and they seem to have selected it to fix the network. So bear with me. Yeah. So I think that one thing that really marked me in my entire life is my father told myself and my two other sisters to remember that no matter what we did and where we went in the world, people will see a woman. People will see an African, people will see a Francophone, people will see a Muslim, and that we would always have to, we couldn't be slackers ever, because already a lot of things were held against us. So we always felt like all three of us, we had to work really, really hard. And Valerie, we sometimes talk about it where until today, as I'm getting closer to 50, where I have to pause and say, I hope I'm not doing this just to prove or to meet those expectations, and how to make sure to start doing things because they're in me and what I want to achieve. So yeah, those were the years that marked me a lot until today.
Thank you. And one common trend here is, first, it looked like most of you love school and was good at school, but also have a future. But we all struggle. We all coming from situation, because for me, I come from a family of 6, but I have my father who were coming from a family of 12 and my mother from a family of 20 something. And but where education was a key. And even if I'm the 5th child, my father never made a difference between girl and boy. She said, you can do whatever you want and I'll support you. And because I was really good at school, then I was always kind of like almost a favorite because I was that. And he always supported, even despite the community pressuring the like, you spoil them to bring them to be too intellectual, going too much to school. Nobody will want them. They will fail. You are. And I think he said, it's okay. And he looked at me and said, you do whatever, I'll be behind. But he always said, when you do that, make sure you do what you want and you stick with that, because you have to own it, own whatever you want, because there's nothing. And also, as I start working internationally, I realized that I have to do, because I start working alone, like only Black woman, young, African, Francophone, is like people start telling you, what are you doing here? Are you lost when you go international? And you have to do 10 times and be almost perfectionist, because if not, but I think the power of the support, but also the challenge we face, is actually what made me, I usually said, they push me to be 10 times better than I probably will be, because be okay was not good enough. You need to be the excellence for you to be able to move where you are. And I think this is actually the story we are hearing there. And what I want to go to next is, what did you dream? Because I think we all have a really good career, as we saw at the beginning. What did you dream? But what was the big hurdle? And what are still some of the challenges you face with yourself, with the environment? And can you describe, I think all of you had that, even from 8 years old, 10 years old, faced that already. But as you grow as your career, what it is? And maybe I'll start with Mona.
Thank you. So as I was growing up, I knew I had to excel, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. What I was clear was that I had to be fearless. I had to challenge stereotypes, and then just allow myself to, be patient with myself as I discovered where my heart lied really. And I found out that my heart really was in a space where I wanted to help other people. It really, as an architect, I never practiced for the rich or for the middle class. My heart was always with the poor who didn't have a home. So that became my dream over time, and challenges many. So I was often in meeting rooms where, out of a group of, let us say, 50 people, I was the only woman. Talking to policymakers, working with masons in the field to look at how we can build safe, where should houses be located. So, just fitting myself in. And I owe it to Dr. Valerie. She helped me be okay with the expression of my femininity in the way I dress and, the way I conduct myself. So I used to have very short hair, t-shirts and jeans, always in the field. And so that was my first challenge, fitting in to a male dominated profession. And then I was married. I have two lovely daughters who are now my greatest strength, really. And, with them so young, I had to be in the field. They started going with me to the field. And, after the tsunami, when I was involved in reconstruction, my older daughter actually played with children affected by the tsunami. And she had a whale of a time because she could access new toys and playing kits that were donated to tsunami affected children. So that's how my daughters grew up. Basically, I would say that looking at the challenges that I have faced, I have grown to be somebody who's more empathetic. I have learned to reach out to my core and then operate from there, So that sometimes, even now, when I operate from a place of authenticity and generosity and understanding, that is seen as weakness in some situations. But then I do know when to let go and find creative ways of, solving problems where I have taken a more generous and empathetic stand, how to be tough and assertive once, the time comes. So these are some of the challenges that I have faced, and I'm continuing to learn and, bloom as a person, manifest the qualities of the universe of generosity, support, life affirmation, those kind of things, and it's not easy. Yeah, I'd pause there. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not easy, and we're still growing. And Barbara.
My dream when I was growing up was to travel the world. I was in a small town where it was very much a monoculture, and I wanted to just see everything. And when I was in college, there was an overseas study program to Israel, and I was able to go and study a little bit of both Islam, Christianity, and Judaism in Israel during that time period. And it just exposed me to a completely different world. And that was the first time I had really been a minority in a situation or out of my element. And I will say that, you talked to Valerie about what were the obstacles, and I wouldn't say this was an obstacle, it was more of a choice. I wasn't able to really get into my stride on international work until I was in my 40s. And part of that was because I chose to support my husband in his career, which, we make our choices. So I moved to Wyoming for his work. I moved to Seattle for his graduate school. We moved other places. But finally, in my 40s, I said, I really want an international job. I really want this in my lifetime. And he was scared to death that I was going to end up somewhere that he just couldn't imagine living. So he said, how about New York City? that's international, And I said, okay, but it's not international enough, but we'll start there. And I will say, I was from this small town, and I had never thought that I could make it in New York City, right? I mean, oh my gosh, I grew up in a small town. I'm a small town girl, but I found my way. And I think that what really helped me was maybe because I was from the Midwest, there's a real vulnerability and authenticity that would come through with people. And so I ended up working with people that opened so many doors for me. And then finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation just for a minute. Finally, I actually left a very high power job at the Earth Institute because I just knew I needed to do something else, but I didn't know what it was. And so I took some time off. I worked for a billionaire and as a consultant, and I really meditated a lot on what is right for me. And I'll never forget, it was on a Wednesday night. It all came together. A friend who worked in the World Economic Forum sent me a job description. I looked at it and I said to Jim, I want to take this job. And the person who was Akina Deshina was going to be in New York City 2 days later. So here's all this coming together. And I got the job. And Cunningham's like, oh, he's my husband of 40 blissful years, mind you. He's like, okay, give me time to think about it. I said, how about 4 hours? He said, I need to do my research. And sure enough, I moved to Kenya. He came later with our dog and lived in Kenya to support me in my work. And I could do my work because he took care of everything else that was needed. And we ended up, going back to New York. We both worked there. And then I had this opportunity in my retirement to go to Rome to look for the World Food Program, work for the World Food Program. And sure enough, again, he's like, okay, I can go. I'll bring the dog. Let's do this. So I want to say that for me, it was doing meaningful work. I'm probably not that person who might be in the trenches, but I saw myself as a person who could build relationships, partnerships, solve problems, address strategic, maybe address shortcomings that might need to, or improvements. And so that was my dream, and I got to live it. And now I will say that after 2016, after the election of 2016 in the US, I seriously looked at returning back to Switzerland to work for one more agency. And then I decided, it's time for me to make a difference on the local level. I'm going to work in my community to improve my community now. And that's how I ended up getting into politics and being an elected official.
Thank you, Barbara. Wow, what a journey. And it's still continuing. I know it's not the last stop for your journey. Maggie?
Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting that you're asking me right after Barbara. So Barbara, I am going to look for encouragement from you, because my dream is to find the courage to get into public service for real, in the same way serving a community, but all sorts of fears and red flags and come up. I think some of them having recently transitioned from my older professional collaboration, and the challenges that came with that, I think, helped me address some of the fears that transitioning can happen. It can be hard, but it can happen. But there are all sorts of other fears when you go into public service. So my dream is to be able to challenge those fears, take them on, and truly play a role in my community in Senegal or in the broader Africa region. And it can be in anything. I think I've already tried and tested some of it in private initiative, but being able to work in an environment that is, how should I call it? Can be pretty contentious, at least in my country. You'll hear all sorts of things, learning how to mobilize people towards these bigger, I think, loftier goals for an entire country, etc. So yeah, that's my dream, Valerie. And I think this is the first time I admitted to myself that I would like one day to find the courage to step into that.
Thank you, Maji. And actually, for that, it's a good segue to Mairo, who is now doing that and with the same fear. Mairo, over to you.
So thank you very much. My dream as a child was to be a pilot. So I'm sure it's not going to be a surprise to anybody being as restless I am, wanting to fly everywhere. But at the time I finished secondary school, I had all the qualifications, but girls were not admitted into piloting school in the country. So the next best thing any girl did was to be, if you're in the sciences, was to be either a doctor or an engineer. And if you're in the social sciences, to be an accountant or a lawyer and stuff. So I got offers to read medicine and to also do engineering. I can't still remember why I took medicine finally. But what I do know is at that time, my mom was sick. So it's probably that gravitated me, but I'm not consciously aware. So I trained as a doctor, and then even as an undergraduate, my undergraduate research was on vesicovaginal fistula, so which was public health, prevention and stuff. And fast tracking, by the time I was 19, I had finished the first 3 years of medical school, and I got married. Now, mind you, I was one of the oldest of my friends to get married at 19. So I was an old bride at 19. And before I finished medical school, I had my first son, Bilal, who just finished his PhD last week or so. So that, then I went in, I never stopped schooling until I became a consultant in obstetrics and gynecology. So it was medical school service, and then went straight into postgraduate, married woman. So by the time I finished as a consultant, I had 4 children. So I was studying and had 4 children. So I have this amazing husband that I think is sometimes dangerous. He pushes you to your limit for as long as it is academics. You just have to keep excelling and keep reading. And if we have a quarrel, it's always about, look, I'm tired of studying. I'm tired of reading. I'm tired of this. This is the cause of why we'll have friction. I then moved in. I worked as a consultant gynecologist at a teaching hospital. I had always loved to teach. I'd always loved to mentor. So this is something that's probably intrinsically in me. And a lot of it I do in girl-child concerns. So at that time, while I was working as a consultant gynecologist at Ahmadu Bello University, I was doing quite a lot of research, and I was teaching social obstetrics and gynecology. So I was gravitating into public health. And so while I was working, I did a lot of work on how to prevent vesicovaginal fistulae, how to prevent this, how to prevent that. And that was when I started some part-time consulting. And at that time, I served as a trainer for the Packard Foundation, where I later became head of the country office and set up the country office in Nigeria for the Packard Foundation. So one of the things that I did, Valerie, is I was always setting up country offices for a lot of that. So having finished that, I also then worked like Barbara with Jeffrey Sachs for some time as a health system advisor for the MDGs, responsible for translating the 2-village pilot we had into 130 local governments across Nigeria. Actually, the largest scale up of any project in Africa at that time. So I started moving. I was still teaching obstetrics. I was still practicing part-time, but I was doing a lot of public health work. Now, from Jeffrey Sachs, I then moved to Gates Foundation, where
Maybe,
Valerie and
Mairo, you want to go quick and while, especially with Maji, now you're doing public, and I know you have that fear because you have 10 minutes, and I have a last big one I want us to go.
So fast tracking to what I do now. Honestly speaking, I've always been involved in community work, but a good friend of mine became the governor of Borno State, this state where you have almost the biggest challenge in the world. And he knows me very well. And he said, now is the opportunity. Would you come and help me? I said, yes, I'm happy to come and help you. So I left from jumping from one country to the other, being all the billionaires, consultants, and head of this and that. I chose to come back to Maiduguri, the epicenter of Boko Haram, where you say Maiduguri people like freeze. And this is where I live currently. This is where I have a home. But the biggest joy I have is that we're able to work directly with internally displaced persons. And one of the greatest achievements, and this for you, Maggie, that I've heard is that in the last 1 year, the governor led us to close all the IDP camps in Maiduguri. Everybody thought it was impossible, but we are resolved that we're not going to have another South Sudan in Maiduguri. We're not going to have any of the what happens internationally. We're going to close it and people are going to go and start picking up their lives. When we close it, hundreds and thousands of people moved to houses. People thought we were crazy, but we did. And for me, this is the most fulfilling thing. When you look at the eyes of children and you see a glow, it's worth every single minute of it. And Maggie, I think you should fast track your dream because it's amazing. The feeling of change, what Barbara is doing, when Barbara was speaking, it's amazing to see how it happens. But you know something that's interesting? For those of you, Barbara, Valerie, that have known Nigeria very well, Maiduguri is now one of the safest cities in northern Nigeria.
Thank you, Mairo. A lot of room for inspiration. I'm conscious of the time. We have 7 minutes, and I have a last one question for all of you. What of being authentic leader means for you? And what you hope for the future for the new generation who are watching us now? One word, short and sweet. Mona?
Thank you. I'd say be proud of the feminine energy that we have, because we are the nurturers, we are the life affirming energies, in the universe. And keep working hard, keep multitasking, keep growing, keep exploring your true potential. It's okay to be vulnerable. So it's only human. So let us find our tribe, let us adjust each other's crowns and keep moving forward, because feminine energy is so critical to keep the world going in the right direction.
Thank you, Mona. Maggie?
Yeah, so for me, it's do you, just do you, laugh, cry. When you need to, sometimes you're at your best after you poured those tears. Sometimes just laughing your head off and not thinking that makes you look any certain way. Dance whenever you get that chance. It just takes away everything and makes you feel so free. To me, that's authentic. And one thing I've learned recently is also really nurturing friendships, family, taking the time to give and receive that love just makes us all really more authentic and more authentic. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Maggie. Mairo? You're muted, Mairo.
So for me, it's being true to who you really are. As we grow up, we get a lot of pressure to change. Remaining authentic, and that you can only do by creating time to reflect. I mean, with modern technology, it's difficult, but there's no way we can grow without reflection. So I personally take the last couple of minutes every day to just lie on my bed and say, what have I done today? How does it fit into my future? And am I really making a difference? And my key word for understanding whether I'm making a difference is, am I promoting social justice? For me, is the key, social justice. That's something that I live for.
Thank you, Mairo. Barbara?
I'm following up on that theme, be authentic. But I want to add that it's okay to have self-doubt. We all do. It's okay to say, did they really want to hire me for this job, or am I qualified? And you just have to keep going. And sometimes there's that phrase, fake it till you make it. But sometimes you just have to keep plowing through and working on it. So just do it. Like they say, the Nike commercial, but you can do it, is what I would say.
Thank you. I I think for me, dream big, dream high, and keep hope. You fall and you stand up again. It will just make you stronger. But to finish, one word. What is your superpower? I'll go quickly. What is your superpower? Mairo?
God.
God. Okay. Maggie?
Passion.
Passion. Mona?
Dharma from the Bhagavad Gita. Dharma, the role, my authentic role, the role in my authentic self in different situations.
Thank you, Barbara.
Problem solving.
Problem solving. Thank you, ladies. This is actually a really interesting, energizing, appealing. I can continue with you because I think we can continue digging for another 2-3 hours, and I think we'll have some more opportunity. But for those of you who watch us, please keep us. Women, we have it. We are queen, we are leaders. We just have to trust. We don't have to copy. We have to be who we are. And we have to continue as a sisterhood, as a supporter. We're here from all the ladies here. They needed somebody on their way. They needed to take the opportunity. They needed to follow. Then us, as we are here, how do we help the next generation? How do we continue to be the authentic self? Life will be tough. There will be harder days. There will be days where we'll have doubt, as Barbara said. There will be days where we'll think, I cannot do it. But there's always that force, that God, that energy that keeps us alive. Please keep up. And thank you, ladies, for this amazing panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie, you can do it. Run for
Yes,
public
Maggie.
office.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you
Okay.
all so